What is up, my friends? All right, so we got a situation here. The whole Russia-Ukraine scenario is definitely playing a role in what's taking place in the financial markets right now, and it's going to be for some time to come. So it is very, I think, a complicated situation. It's difficult to know what's going on. I know a lot of the people who I've talked to recently are like, have no idea what's going on over there other than Putin is being a jerk, and that's about it. So a couple things I want to talk about this. We're going to do a little bit of everything today, but I do want to talk about this, tell you what I know so far. I do know a lot of people who live in Ukraine or people who have family, a lot of family that lives in the Ukraine. No one's really on this far East Russian side, though. So what I'm hearing from them is that everything's totally normal and fine. They're not like worried about anything there. There's no panic going on or anything like that. But it's also not really close to what's going on. So here's what we know for sure right now. By the way, Derrick Evans, VA Home Loan Specialist, NMLS 155010. Give me a call, text, email if you want to buy or refi. We'll talk more about mortgage rates in a second. Okay, so by the way, I've watched a bunch of content on what's going on in Ukraine, and basically nothing's verifiable. That's the thing that's so frightening. When you get to a point where you don't trust what anyone says, like, look, I'm from Missouri, show me, but at the same time, you have to put a little bit of trust in with certain things like this, right? Because we're not going to know for sure if that B-roll of those soldiers is actually on the ground in Ukraine right at this moment, which it's not. But we really can't verify any of this. So we got to keep that in mind too. There's definitely a certain amount of value in controlling this narrative. We don't really know what's true. Here's what's happening, though, that we do know, at least that's not being argued by either side. There's these areas in Ukraine here, which they're called rebels. They don't want to be a part of Ukraine anymore. They want to be independent. Putin has basically said, I am with these guys who want to break away from Ukraine, become independent. In other words, not become part of Russia or Ukraine, but become their own thing. And I'm actually willing to go ahead and protect them militarily to allow them to do this. Obviously, those are serious brownie points you can earn from people who are trying to secede by protecting them and doing so. But that is what is going on. So what you're going to hear in the news is, and this little headline here, Putin orders troops into separatist region, is true. They have moved troops into these regions. He says that it's for peacekeeping. They're there to make sure that they're able to separate and form their own governments or whatever without any conflict. They have protection from Ukraine. That's what he's saying. Now, it's interesting because what do you do in a situation like that? Like, what if, let's bring it home. Let's say Texas wanted to secede from the United States, become its own country, or California. And then imagine like Mexico sending troops in to, protect that and allow that to happen. It's not going to go over well. That's just it's not a good look. It's not really how those things go down typically. If you were to have like a Texas, secede from the United States. Well, we saw it in the Civil War. We saw what happens. Like it's an ugly thing. You have to fight your own fight. You can't get Big Brother to come fight it for you. So it's a problematic situation. Why is the U.S. so involved? Why is this a top talking point for the current administration? I don't know. I really don't. So here's the two areas, by the way. I don't know how to pronounce these, but they border, and you're going to hear a couple things. You're going to hear that Putin has invaded Ukraine, which maybe on paper is true. You're also going to hear that he has crossed the Ukrainian border, has troops at the Ukrainian border. It's also the Russian border. Keep that in mind. Just try to be as skeptical as you can about everything that you hear and not to take too much of it to heart because we really don't know what's going on here. It would seem to me, if it were just what it seems to be at face value, if what they're just telling us here, and pretty much every video is saying the same thing, if it's all really true that way, it would be stupid to do. Like, I feel like there's something we don't know because the sanctions are going to come from every direction. And Russia, speaking of Texas, Texas has more GDP than Russia. I think it's a lot more. It might be 2x. So, like, Russia is not like a rich nation. It's a big nation, and they definitely have, I mean, Russia's amazing. There's so many amazing things about Russia and the Russian people. But they're not like an economic powerhouse. Do you know what I mean? Now, does anyone remember Crimea? Let's go back here. I actually pulled this up. The annexation of Crimea by the Russian Federation. Let's see. This is in 2014. That happened under Obama, if you recall. Russia came and basically and the whole story's here in Wikipedia. It's like not long. It's like 2 paragraphs, I think, to get all the way to the end of it. They basically came and took Crimea, a territory. They took a territory from Ukraine. Mr. Biden was the vice president at that time. So, obviously, none of this stuff happened under Trump. And this isn't a political ad, but these are just facts. So what's really going on here? I don't know. But it's definitely something. You saw the fear stoking that was going on. I was trying to do some research on the NASDAQ here, just from a volume perspective. It seems like there has been some big selling at some of the top areas here. Big boys and girls have been exiting in the last couple months there. That may be another video. I'm not going to touch that today. But I will tell you that it's dominating the headlines. Let's see if we can find a post about COVID. Okay, here's one. COVID infections plummet 90%. Well, that's what you want to see. So the headline dominator, it's what's called crisis hopping. We're hopping from one crisis to the next. COVID infections plummet. What's the next crisis? Controlling the narrative. That's what this is. A lot of this is about. Is there anything else on here about COVID? I don't think so. CNBC is a great place to measure this because I see all the headlines every single day, and I know what sort of the established media is trying to get across. But Russia, now this is the first one that we need to pay attention to here. Look at this. Russia's Ukraine incursion could complicate the Federal Reserve's interest rate decisions. Oh, you don't say. Oh, you don't say. There it is. There it is. It's a white swan event, if you will. They're setting it up because this is the Fed. The Fed must know that if they do what they have to do to curb inflation, it's going to murder the markets. I've been talking about all the worthless bonds out there, $120 trillion worth. They must know this. If I know this, they must know this. They are going to need a reason to not drop the hammer. The political fallout is just too much. I mean, can you imagine if between now and November, stocks lost 50% of the value? I mean, it's already going to be a bloodbath for the Democrats. No offense, guys. It's going to be a bloodbath. And so can you imagine that? So I guarantee there's a lot of political pressure here to not crash the markets. The managed crash, as I've called it, is in process right now, even though the majority of the things on the table, actual action items, have not taken place yet. They are already going, whoa, wait a minute. What? And this is something that some of the really smart traders that I follow and that I talk to have been saying, don't count on that just yet. Remember when we saw the article a few videos back from Goldman Sachs saying 7 rate hikes? That felt like propaganda, didn't it? I'm pretty sure we called that out. Like, wait a minute, 7? Could it be? 7 might be the correct number needed for inflation purposes, but are they really going to do that? Seems pretty reckless for a Goldman Sachs to be saying something like that. Now you can see potentially what's going on. They don't want to do it. They really don't. And this to me is just sort of one of the many seeds that's going to be planted on this front here soon. Now, the Russian sanctions, why? We've got to wonder, why does Putin how does he have the stones to do something like this? Where does he get the stones? How? You know the sanctions are going to be coming. You know this is going to cause problems. You know we already have supply chain issues. You know that oil is already how much? $95, $92? Brent's at 96. Look at that. It's already up there. Well, we know, he got away with it before. Last time, Biden was in the White House as VP, he took Crimea, no problem. That was like swift and nobody's business, just done. U.S. wasn't involved. Now the U.S. seems to be very involved. Why? What changed? Why are we so quick to be in there? Not to say that we shouldn't be in there with NATO and all the different, nations who are saying you probably shouldn't do this, because you know what? You probably shouldn't do this. There's got to be a better way, because it looks really bad. So what is it that he's got? Does he have something on somebody? Does he know something that we don't? Remember, Russians, if you look up the top 100 like chess players in the world, you're going to see a lot of people on there from Russia. That's right. Very smart, strategic. Mind works that way. It's a great people for that. He must have on his team, Putin must have some of the best strategists. So what is going on? Are they going to outsmart someone here? Are they going to outsmart everybody? Or maybe just us? Or who? Ukraine? I don't know. But I know that he wouldn't do something as reckless as what they're making this look like. There's more tact involved. We just don't know the whole story. And that's what I'm really curious about. However, thankfully, I will say I do believe that the chances of this situation getting dramatically worse or scaling out to a full-fledged like World War III scenario, I think are pretty slim. I do. I think they're pretty darn slim. However, it can dominate the headlines. It can move the markets. And it could, let's see, where is it here? I guess I should scrap the panel menu. Okay, hold on. It could mean the Federal Reserve pushes the pause button. So what happens if they do that? What if the Fed, by the way, we're down 30 bips today in mortgage bonds. I'm going to look at this chart next, but I'm going to talk about this for a couple more seconds here. Because if the Fed pushes the pause button, meaning, hey, you know what? We have this plan. We have a great plan. The plan is terrific. It's written down. We're going to follow it to a T. But right now, we've got to push the pause button because there's some uncertainty here. There's already some issues. We don't want to pile on to all this. Okay? And if that happens, then you're probably going to see what the bond market really thinks of the current inflation situation. And if they do continue to buy mortgage bonds, then that could be helpful. But by making this declaration, it would mean that inflation is going to be essentially unchecked. So what does the bond market think of that? Well, we know right now what the bond market thinks about them raising rates. Doesn't like that. So maybe if they get back on the other side, maybe we catch a rally. Maybe we see rates drop. Remember, this is the one thing I've been telling you that's possible. The only catalyst for interest rates to go lower right here, the only thing is if the Fed says, you know what? We take it back. We take it back. We were just playing. We're not going to do all that stuff we said we were going to do to balance the market out and curb inflation. We're going to exit stage left for now, or we're going to push the pause button for now. Let the markets be. Money printer go brrr. And we're basically back to risk on everything. This would cause the stock markets to go absolutely bananas. Look, the stock markets have pulled back a little bit right here. And there's a lot of smart money that says that the technicals are lined up for a coiling move higher. And, sometimes those technicals line up. You have the chartist and all the TA guys. They say, oh man, it's lined up for a perfect move higher. But if it's too obvious, sometimes that's a setup. And so that's what I've been thinking it was. But if we do get some sort of activity like that from the Federal Reserve, or a lack of activity, I should say, just an announcement of it, stocks will go bananas higher. And that could be great for bonds, which could lower interest rates. If we continue, okay, so that's the absolute rosiest possible picture that I can paint for you. Now let's talk about more realistic. Well, let's look at today's price action. We're down 30 basis points today. But look, we stayed in this range. I'm cool with that if we can stay here, although based on that candle, it's looking less and less likely that that'll be possible. We have this nice little range right here, little range box. It's been tested. I mean, look how much it's been tested. Can you see like how heavy the price looks there? To me, I always like to describe it that way. Either the price looks light or it looks heavy. Heavy, of course, means it feels like it's just weighted, like it's gravity is pulling it down. Light, like it's a helium balloon that's just sort of floating and just wants to go higher. Look how heavy price action looks in this particular range that we're in right now. Look at that. It looks very, very heavy here. And just almost suction cupped to the low end. Like we get a breakout, which we had yesterday, the day before, like we actually moved higher. We had some good positive action. Not yesterday, sorry, that was Friday. Thursday and Friday look great. Today, that's a bad candle. That's a heavy candle. Just right up against the bottom of the support area here, which we've tested so many times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now really close to a sixth time. At some point, if you knock on the door enough times, it's going to let you in. And that's really what we're working against right now. Tomorrow could very well be another leg down here. And that's what it looks like is going to happen. Lost 30 basis points today. Wouldn't be surprised if we lose more than that tomorrow. But remember, this 100 area right here, that is sort of like the last support line that we have. We have to go back a year plus to find prices at this level. And that's kind of the last place where we have support. Beyond that, I don't know what happens. I don't know. How much downside is there with that? A lot. There's nothing there. It's just we're in price discovery. In other words, we have a free fall situation off the cliff. This is the edge of the cliff right here. Don't know where we go from there. So if we do break below this, we're going to start to figure out, get some new support and resistance lines in place. But if we can stay in this range, keep rates right here, get maybe some dovish comments from the Fed, then we can see that upward movement in bonds. Remember, when bonds go up, rates go down. So we want to see the price go higher on these bonds to help lower interest rates. That's what I want to see anyway. I like low interest rates. I'm a mortgage guy, in case you didn't know. So in my opinion, we want to see lower rates. We want to see people have the opportunity to save money or to buy homes with good prices. That's like a big part of what we're trying to help people achieve. So that's kind of the rundown on that part of things. Now let's quickly take a look here. Actually, let's look at all the financial markets really quickly. Dow, between the Dow and the NASDAQ and the S&P, down about 1 to 1.5%, Russell 1.5%, a little bit of activity in the VIX. Bonds also down slightly today. Yields moving up just a little bit. Oil, we talked about that. Gold's actually made 1,900. I think that's worthy of mentioning. Gold makes 1,900. I've been making fun of gold for a long time, been stuck at 1,800. You know why it was stuck at 1,800? There was sell pressure, but there's apparently a whale buyer around the 1,800 mark in gold. And I know some people who are very bullish on gold. They're very, very bullish on gold. I can't get there. I just can't join it. Bitcoin, relatively flat, but still, 38,000. So it's still in a downtrend. Let's take a look at it more closely here. A lot of people predicting that this move, this lower low here that was created, higher low, I should say, is the turning point, and we're just going to move higher here for Bitcoin. This is possible. We zoom out and we look, okay, we've got this green channel. That's the macro channel. I've got some red resistance lines in there just for FYI sake, if nothing else right now. Those are kind of upside targets that have to be breached before you can really, get too excited. But we're still in the uptrend here. The macro uptrend is intact. The majority of the TA I've seen for the bullish case is intact. We've seen some things happen in Canada. If you haven't been paying attention to Canada lately, this could be part of the reason for the Ukraine distraction. What's gone on in Canada is basically there's been protests against vaccine mandates, vaccine passports, and the government has essentially started just arresting peaceful protesters and freezing their bank accounts. So kind of a big advertisement for Bitcoin. They froze the GoFundMe page, and then they started taking Bitcoin donations, and they couldn't really stop that. And so it's kind of this advertisement for, this is the liberation that Bitcoin provides. But with all that, like good news, what I would say is good news for Bitcoin, not a whole lot of movement, not a whole lot of what we would say, like Bitcoin-esque upward movement. So when this head and shoulders here, reverse head and shoulders here sort of failed, right? Well, I mean, it sent it higher, but then it failed. That to me is like, okay, we really have to look out here below. Like this could be pretty ugly. Over the weekend, 3-day weekend, markets are closed. Bitcoin's open. It's 24/7 marketplace. And you go in and you watch what's happening, and it's getting killed the whole time. But if you think about all the fear that was sowed over the weekend, nobody had the chance to go in and like sell their stocks. If they were totally in fear mode, they had to wait until today. And if you remember, I did a video yesterday. We talked about this. The futures markets were down about where they ended today. That's pretty much what it looked like in the futures market. So we were flat from futures open for the day, even though we stayed in the red, given all of these different factors that are in play. The hawkish Fed, geopolitical tensions. Pretty interesting, right? You would expect a more like volatile session than that, right? Same. And Bitcoin actually came back up about $1,500 from where it was at the low over the weekend. So just really, really interesting. I'm not going to speculate too much on it, but it's definitely interesting, if nothing else, to see that kind of correlation going on right here, right now. If we do see a run in stocks like we talked about, remember the Fed getting more dovish, that's going to send Bitcoin higher as well. And it'll just kind of be back to normal. Throw your money at it. Throw your money at the market. Doesn't matter what you buy. It's going to go up. That's where we'll be if that becomes a situation. So I'm going to include these links below. Hopefully that is helpful for you. What's funny here is, did I lose that? There it is. Give me a call. Shoot me a text. Want to see what rates are? Want to buy? Want to refi? Shoot me an email. I will be here. Definitely, no question about it. The market has gotten slower, and it's nice. It's nice to have lots of time to be able to help people as thoroughly as possible. I like to be very thorough. So if you want to rate quote, you want to see how things look, you want to get pre-approved, see where you stand, just let me know. Happy to help. You guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.